Did you hear that?
Yes, I did indeed.
It's never done that before.
Yeah, and asked me if I wanted to.
Let me record you.
Yes, I said okay.
Well, yeah, because it wouldn't be much of an episode if you said no, would it?
Maybe the Zoom lady knows something we don't. Maybe we should stop now while we still have the chance.
All right, and that's it for today's episode, guys. Zoom says no.
Well,
anyway, hello everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Story of a Storyteller. And my guest today is Triona Walsh. How are you, Triona?
hello, I'm good.
Good. Triona and I actually know each other in real life. We are both part of the same writers group, the Second Mondays writers group. And if anyone has been listening to the podcast for a while, you might remember my interview with Jennifer Burke, who is also in the writers group. So the writers group is lots of many wonderful, interesting people. So I said I'd start pulling from that pool once more. So Triona, how are you anyway in general? What's the crack? I haven't seen you in ages.
Yeah, I know. I haven't seen anybody in ages, which is good in some cases, but not in most. Yeah. I'm good. I'm very good.
Good. So I always start with early days and everything. And we were talking for quite a while, actually, before we hit record, because we were just catching up. And you said that you read a lot and every writer should be reading a lot. So when did that start for you? When did you start reading?
Well, actually, I have to say that's a very interesting question. Well, it's probably very interesting to me, but I'm probably bored with it to tears. So I found it a real struggle as a child to learn to read and then to read comfortably. Yeah, it's funny. It's something I look back on and I suspect if I was in school today, I'd have been, chatting to teachers who, like yourself, who would, specialize and would have drilled down and see. But all I know that it was a real struggle. So I used to watch the other kids loving books and, immersing themselves in books and just being puzzled and going, what is this strange world that I've been excluded from? So I don't really know what happened. It's the oddest thing. I don't know why. I don't know. But about the age of 12, maybe 11, 12, just something changed, and even up to that point, though, I was very creative and I would have been kind of creating little worlds and whatever, but it wouldn't have been in the context of books or whatever, but something clicked in the whole thing and I became a voracious reader. And would have 3 or 4 books on the go and anything and everything. So yeah, so I look back on it and I feel sad. I missed out on all the classic children's literature that everybody loves and it makes such an impact on them.
Yeah.
I don't. But thank goodness anyway. Whatever happened, and that changed. But
that's really interesting.
To look back on.
And was it anything in particular? Was there? How can I put this? Just as from a teacher point of view, that's really interesting that it just clicked, because that often happens at maths, but you don't really hear of it happening with reading as a hobby. So can you remember what was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to say, when it came to reading?
In a good way.
Yeah. We want that back broke.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. All I remember is that I felt very frustrated personally about it, and it was obviously a world I really wanted to gain access to. And I know I constantly picked up books trying, well, maybe this one. And then finally I read a Roald Dahl book. The classic, if you're going to, which one was this? There's somebody with the something finger, whatever that.
Magic finger.
The Magic Finger, there we go. The Something Finger. That was the first title he thought he'd go with. And that one, I imagine it's probably not the most complicated of his books, but that I forced myself to read that and get to the end. And it was the first book I kind of enjoyed it all, and the first book I kind of got to the end of. And so that was definitely the first step, but there definitely was something else that then really kicked off, and I don't know. I can't tell you. It's a bit of a mystery, and I'd love to know myself. But all I know is that within a few years, it just it just
exploded. Then
yeah.
And you said that before you really got into reading, you were already creating. So what kind of things did you create? What did you? Was it fantasy or was it just whatever? Or
I used to. Now we have some very good teachers. It's all comes down to teachers, Connor. It's in 6th class, so when I would have been about that kind of age, so maybe this helped, but she did lots of drama And I was very shy, quiet child. I was painfully shy, painfully quiet. But I noticed that, yeah, I know. I say that and people go, really? Really, Trina? But I was very different. I was a different girl. Maybe I've been swapped out at some point. Um, but I knew without realizing what it was that I was good at writing. So she would have these little plays on a Friday, and everyone could do a little drama. And I used to, in my quiet, I'd be like, well, what about that line? And why don't we do this? And I was and basically, I was the one who was like creating these little plays for my friends. They'd get up and do that, and so and that type of thing. So I was writing without realizing I was writing. And I came from a very creative home as well. So there was a real atmosphere in the home of just art and music and that type of thing. So it was always something. I would have been drawing a lot. I would have been, and I'm quite sure I was just very interested in anything creative. So that whatever avenue there might have been, I would be pursuing it in some fashion.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
No, it does. It does. It's interesting you say that, because that's one thing I have found a lot through talking to so many different storytellers on this podcast, that nurture really needs it doesn't have to be there, but it really helps. Like there was a previous guest on this season of the show, Margaret Gilnetti, and she said her household was very strict, but creativity was really pushed at the same time. And now, like, she's a published author and everything like that. So in what ways was creativity encouraged in your home as a child? And actually, while I have you as well, thinking about that time, where are you in the family? What was your family situation like in terms of siblings and things like that?
Yeah, well, I have 3 brothers, and I'm the only girl. I'm the second in the family. So all that sort of like, hello, notice me kind of stuff. I'm here. So now I was a bit unusual in that my mother's an artist, designer, illustrator. So I think creativity was normal. It was only as I got older, I look back and went, gosh, our house was actually a bit unusual. And she worked, she illustrated children's books and all sorts of, or she Bosco, if you grew up watching Bosco,
yeah.
Stories that whatever name, Maureen Raid, whatever the names are, when they read the story, the pictures that came up, my mother might have done those.
Wow.
And so she did a lot of that. And then like her father was a very talented artist and a writer, and then was a bank manager by day. This was the big thing. There was a lot of sort of like conventional day life, and then very creative. And uncle, my mother's brother, like was also a bank manager, but he's a phenomenal photographer. Then my father, again, businessman by day, but he's a musician, and he had a place in the National Symphony Orchestra, but decided he didn't want the uncertain life of a musician. So there was all his friends, and he set up one of the largest amateur orchestras in Ireland, and so his creative friends would be around, and there'd be dinner parties, and then out would come the violins and the whatever. So it was just sort of, and it was just ordinary. There wasn't a sort of like that there was anything special, it was just sort of, this is day-to-day life, this is, we create, we're music, art, my mother's painting on the walls, this type of thing. So I look back, I go, wow, I was so lucky. I mean, it was fantastic, and just, it was ordinary to me, and this is just what, this is what growing up is like, this is what your parents do, so it was just natural, it was just, this is what you did,
Yeah. That's amazing. I'd love to have seen that household in its heyday, like dinner parties and violins and paintings on the wall. It sounds like it was a really how can I put it, like, to me it sounds totally bizarre, because I didn't have that much of creativity in the household. Like, we were encouraged, definitely, like but I only have the one brother, and my brother and I are so different. Like, we look quite similar, and we're like, if the two of us stand side by side, be like, yeah, they're brothers, definitely. But personality, couldn't be further apart in personality. So I think we were both pushed like down the paths that we were already on, if that makes sense. Like, I was doing drama lessons, and I was writing, and I was all this stuff. I was like, do that more. And my brother was the farmer, and Dad was like, great, I have someone to help.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So when so let's fast forward a bit through your kind of childhood and everything. And at what point, actually, there's one thing I do want to ask you. You said the magic finger. That was kind of the first one you read. but is there any story that was read to you that
Oh, yeah.
that really resonated or stuck with you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I don't have, normally, I think I was saying to you before we started that if I ever asked, have I ever read a book, instantly like blank, and I've never read a single book ever, books, what are books? But that I can answer absolutely without any hesitation. Swallows and Amazons, Arthur Ransom. It was read to me, and it's funny now, of course, my kids got to a certain age, I was like, you must read this book. This is the one. And I opened it, and like, I don't know when it was written like, maybe the 20s or something, like, and the language was bizarrely like old fashioned. And my kids were like, what is this, mommy? This is dreadful. Like, what's happened? I don't understand, And
you're there lifting your rose tinted glasses going, oh.
Now, that said, enough, I think I probably made them stick with it. I think though I think I handed it over to my husband to keep reading it. Sorry, but they loved it by the end. So it's I take it you haven't.
No, I've never even heard of it. No.
Oh, Swallows and Owls! It's a classic. I was like, slam my dad. You must. You just need to get through the weird language. It's just basically, I think, it has that special thing that I think all really good kids books have. They remove the adults from the equation. So in this, it's a bunch of kids, I think, the Lake District in England, and I was living in my little housing estate in Dublin. I just wanted to be beside lakes after reading this. The countryside lakes, where are they?
Yeah.
And they go and they camp on an island, and then there's like shenanigans. I think there's, some guys are stealing boats or so. I'm not entirely, it was really, but it was just, they meet a couple of the local girls who reckon they're pirates, and it's just kids without any adults having a bit of adventures. And I loved it. I wanted to be on that island and sailing ships and stopping or whatever they were doing. But huge impact on me, that book, I have to say. Read it.
I will. That's like me when I read The Secret Seven by Enid Blyton, and that, I know The Secret Seven. Everyone's like, no, it's the famous five. It's like, no, there's a Secret Seven as well, actually. And I loved it because they had this amazing like treehouse that, in hindsight, is probably bigger than the apartment I live in now. Like, unrealistically huge, that had trapdoors and secret compartments to hide their stuff and everything.
Yeah.
And I became obsessed. And I actually, me and my brother at one point built, it was quite good actually. We built a treehouse. It was quite high up, and we actually like hammered rungs into the trunk to climb up into it and stuff.
Cool.
And
yeah,
I know it's really funny how certain stories just they call to kids in a particular way, and there's never a reason why. Like, and it's always a different book. I've never heard any. Like, I asked nearly everyone that question, and no one's ever said the same book as someone else.
Really, that's so interesting. Yeah.
And like that book, like there are books people will say, and I'm like, I never heard that book before. Okay, that's interesting. So anyway, I was before we went to that question, I was going to ask you. So when childhood was wrapping up and you're kind of finishing the Leaving Cert, which to anyone outside of Ireland is a ritualistic torture that the government places on 16 to 18-year-olds, so that we get nice weather during the summer. And
it's happening already.
Oh yeah. The Leaving Cert starts in a week and a half, I think, and it's really good weather. So I was like, yay, let's go. But I was going to ask, what happened? So you did your Leaving Cert. Where did you go? What did you do with life at that point?
Well, I went straight on to college because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. So like all wasters, I did an arts degree, which is like school extra. And I did history and politics.
Okay.
I didn't do English because I think, again, my confidence was still kind of low about my abilities and whatever. So I think I felt I would have notions if I went on and did English, and I wouldn't be up to it. And, and so that's a big regret. My eldest child is doing English now, and I'm practically doing the degree for him. I'm like, bring your essays to me, bring your essays. Oh, could you say that? What about that argument? And he's like, please, I have to do this myself. Like, oh. So I think so, but still I enjoyed it. I went to UCD and spent quite a few happy years there just studying. If my parents are listening to this podcast later, I studied very hard. I went to all my lectures, and
And you never skipped anything, and you never went to any kind of parties or pubs or anything.
No, not at all. No, I was so good. I was so good.
Same as all of us who went to college.
Exactly. And then after that, though, again, I kept coming back to the writing, which was there. And for my postgrad, I did a journalism postgrad, because a lot of people who want to write say, yeah, well, journalism, that's an actual job thing associated with what we like to do. Sorry. But I discovered that I didn't have the personality for journalism, in that you just have to be
constantly switched on.
Yeah, and you just and I just wanted to write. I didn't really want to chase things. I didn't want, and again, journalism isn't really writing either. You know, it is informing. Yeah, exactly. So unless I, had wangled my way into some kind of features writing thing, which is everything I just turned in was like, sort of, from the features page in the weekend section. There was no sort of like cutting edge, gas pipeline blows up stuff. It just didn't push my buttons. But that, so I finished with that, and that left me kind of, going, okay, yes, you finally did something about writing, which, and here you are, and you're 20, and what now, so no, it was the inklings of what I wanted to do. And so then I moved sideways. The first job I got was working for Saatchi and Saatchi Advertising, their Irish branch, writing ads. So it was just getting worse, further and further away from
what you wanted.
Writing, yeah. But that didn't last long either, so I didn't enjoy that, and I ended up, like, this will make total sense. I ended up in IT.
Yes, of course.
It was just like, no, it was great. It was everybody same age, and it was a bit of a, Celtic tie. Was it Celtic tie at that point? What age am I? Connor, can you tell me? I'm not really sure. But that was, that was again a bit like college all over again, to be honest with you. But I wrote the company newsletter, so that's still, it all kept coming back to writing. If there was any kind of avenue, that said, they a bit like on live shows where they put like a 5-second delay on some people. Anything I wrote for it had to go through a few people. I tended to not care too much about company culture and so. And then the new editor to the newsletter came in, was warned about me. Yeah, don't publish whatever Triona writes until we check it.
Oh, that's hilarious. I'm watching the Office, the American Office at the minute. So you kind of sound like the Michael Scott. Like, it's just like, oh no, great and everything, but make sure someone else checks her work first, because oh god. So that's really interesting though. Like, it seems like every path you went down, and every career path you went down, that you found a way towards writing all the time. So that's one thing I think is really interesting, because I think anyone who writes a book, like, a lot of people write, but anyone who finishes a book, I should say, they tend to have that, like, they were always writing at some point. Like, one of the reasons I went into teaching was I wanted to write, and I wanted to, there was 3 things I always wanted to do. It was write, act, and teach. And I did acting for a couple of years, while like in the afternoons while teaching, and then I stopped doing that and then started writing instead. And it's just
right.
It was always there. So when did you start writing? Like, were you during that time working like in college and journalism degree and the advertising company and the IT company? Were you always writing at home your own things creatively, or did that come after?
Yeah, no, it's funny now you mentioned it. I'd forgotten that sometime in my teens, when that kind of reading thing had kind of come on, I read S.E. Hinton, The Outsiders, and all her books, and absolutely they made a huge impact on me. And I'm sure I have it somewhere there at maybe about 15 years of age. I thought, I'm the next S.E. Hinton. That's it, And so the first attempt at the book happened kind of in my early teens. And oh God, it might be good for laughs if I dig it out. It's in the attic. So this notice that, so I was thinking back on this a few years ago, and I noticed that pretty much kind of every sort of decade, once I got out of the, 1 to 10, I made an attempt on a novel. So in my 20s, I can't believe I'm going to admit this.
Oh, I can't wait.
So I have to say, no, it's not that bad. I'm just embarrassed. So I think it took me a while to kind of find what I wanted to be writing and where I'm going. And so in my 20s, I heard that a lot of people made a good living writing Mills and Boons novels. I'm like, I never read the bloody thing. So I thought, yeah, Triona, that's it. Sit down and you'll write that and it'll be brilliant. They'll recognize your genius. You'll make it for it. You'll have a pseudonym. It'll be grand. Yeah, I'm mortified. I can't believe why am I telling you this?
You're not just telling me, I'll just remind you, this is a podcast that will be going, worldwide. So
rewind, delete.
Nope. I have.
So oh God, well, the only good thing about that, fate intervened, and I met my husband around the time I was doing that, and suddenly there was cinemas to be going to and restaurants and general falling madly in love. So the real life Mills and Boons.
Yay!
So the appalling novel got chucked, and God knows how much ever. So that went in the bin, like, thank Christ. And then I just kind of mooched along for another few years and ended up having a bunch of kids and stuff. So that kind of the writing. But again, the kids, you see them. So this is easy every decade. So that got me to my 30s.
Yeah.
And I had 2 small children. By the time I was 30, I had 2 small children. And like, oh my God, it's I love them. They're all big now, but it was horrific. It was the worst time of my life. I didn't sleep for a decade. Sorry, I love you, babies. But my husband, again, that lovely man, said to me, you need to do something. You need to kind of, get out of here. So he said, do an evening class, please.
It sounds like he was more for his own sake. Like he was like, Triona, you're driving me nuts. Oh God, get out of the house.
So I ended up signing up to a creative writing evening class in Old Bawn Community School with the amazing poet and tutor Eileen Casey. Mm-hmm. She's inspirational. Without her, I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't be writing. I wouldn't have achieved anything. She just, when there's rare teachers who, not rare teachers, but just, hopefully common teachers, but one I hadn't met too many of, who she just wanted everyone to be their best and to reach whatever they could, and she's just so generous and also inspirational with it. She's just like fantastic, and she's a very talented poet and short story writer herself. She won lots of awards, but she was just the most generous teacher now I've ever come across, and fantastic. And that so that class, it ran for September to December probably, but it just changed my life, to be honest with you. And it was wonderful. And she had fantastic little exercise. She'd bring in a recipe. She had one, and I always regret not having to take. She gives a choice. Yeah, she came 3 different inspiration things to go do some homework and come back the next week. And one week, one of the options was a recipe. It was literally just like 100 grams of flour, 2.
Right, like she gave you the recipe, or she told you to write one?
She gave us just, so she'd have, it might be a newspaper article, it might be another short story, it might be something, but one was literally just a recipe for like orange cake or something. And you had to just take that and just see where it took you and what that inspired. And I think at the time I was like, well, okay, that Eileen, that's too far, like, you know what I mean? Like a recipe, really? But I mean, but that was how she challenged us to really look at creativity in a different way and just what it would do. And I must do that sometime. I must write something inspired by just a recipe for orange cake. She was brilliant, like, and I noticed I was good at it as well, if that's not blowing my own trumpet. I noticed that my stuff would get a good reaction and I think you probably have this. I know that if I've done something particularly good, I kind of know it in my tummy, at the sort of, oh yeah, I think I've got something here. And I noticed that feeling for the first time with the writing, even though I'd been writing on and off, since I was a teenager. I think it was that class where I went, well, okay, maybe actually you should do this. Maybe you should take this more seriously and look at it. So that was, and then what she did as well, Eileen, she said to everybody in the class, right, you need to form a writers group. so you live close to each other. Listen, you, Triona, I'm doing another class up in Lucan, and there's a gang up there who's starting a writer group. Here's their email, get in touch with them. So I was like, oh, okay, yeah. I was having so much fun and loving it so much. I was like, yeah. So I got in contact with this class that she'd been doing up in Lucan, and they were starting to meet every Saturday morning in Lucan Library. And I have to say, they were just, there was lightning in a bottle. That gang they've gone on to like major publishing deals, awards, and anything that could be won or done, that group has gone on to do. And that was fantastic. So that then lasted my 30s. There you go, again, the whole history. That group, and that's when I really started to take it seriously and started looking about writing short stories properly and thinking about writing.
As a career.
Yeah, and
it's interesting you say that because it's nearly a year since I interviewed Jenny from our writing group, and I think I said it then, but like writing groups are a phenomenal resource. They really, really, really are. And I know for a fact you've said it in other meetings that you learn just as from our own meetings, that you learn as much reading someone else's writing than you do getting the feedback from other people. And even sometimes, like, let's say that Jenny is saying something about a piece of yours, and while I'm listening to that, I'll hear something like, wait, I do that. Oh, and it's you just learn so much. And what I love to tell people is C.S. Lewis, who wrote the Narnia books, and J.R.R. Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, were in the same writers group together.
No, seriously?
Yeah. I think they were called.
That's blowing my mind.
The Ink Slingers or something like that, I want to say. Because they're the same generation, and they. I know Tolkien did, but I don't know if C.S. Lewis fought in World War One. But they were the same. They were in around the same age.
Yeah.
And I just think that's amazing.
There.
I know.
Okay, I've written this thing now. There's a lot of little people in it and some big scary people, but stay with me.
Yeah.
I've got this line.
I was going to say, no, for me it would be that I'm writing this book and God's a lion. Oh, God. Amazing a series of books, both of them. I absolutely love them. But yeah, so you joined the writing group in Lucan then, and what were you writing then? Were you starting with short stories, or were you starting to think about novels then at that point?
Yeah, so it was a comedown. So again, Eileen, she had a bit of advice as she kind of that writing class ended and we all transitioned to kind of writers group. She said, like, not quite write what you know, because I'm not a fan of that, but it was sort of look at your life and is there inspiration there that you can go with. And so I started a truly awful novel, a kind of family drama thing, and also short stories. So I was kind of doing those hand in hand for a good long time, and I looked at that book recently. I thought, well, there was lots of good ideas in that. Maybe and no, it's the worst thing ever. It's truly like I could publish it as a how not to write a book and how to be awful, but I think we all have to do that. You know
what you have to do? You have to take the worst chapter from that and submit it to the writing group just to see what people will say. Will they be like, Triona, what happened? Or will they praise it? And then you're like, hang on, no.
It's I mean, but again, it's the apprenticeship. I mean, if we all woke up in the morning brilliant at this, then it would not be handy, but we're not, and it's called a craft for a reason. You're learning your craft, and it's atrocious. It's absolutely, I mean, I'm not exaggerating, but again, it was good, and I finished it. It took easily 10 years maybe for me to write the end, but it did.
You got there.
Yeah. And I knew I kind of had to go back and rewrite it if I ever wanted to do anything with it. But I think at that point I realised that maybe not. But I was writing short stories and they were beginning to do kind of well for me. I won some competitions and short listings and this type of thing. So I think I'm getting my endorphin hit from that. So I think I was happy to and also I had a few more children at that point as well, so I was very tired, very tired. So I think short stories are all I could manage. But again, that was great. Every word you write is a good word, and even if I'm again talking to another friend of mine who's attempting a novel now, and she won a mentorship with a fantastic writer, and so she had 40,000 words already written, and she submitted this as part of this mentorship with this writer, and he was like, so she's had to just junk 40,000 words. I think we've all been there, but. But none of that was really wasted. She has learned so much about her story and her characters and everything. So even if it doesn't make it into the finished book, it's still good. And I think you'd agree, that any writing, whatever it is, even if it never gets anywhere, is good writing. It's useful.
I think a good way to say it. Excuse me. Whatever it is, it's catching. I think. A good way to look at it is there's no such thing as a wasted word on a page, because it's like you said, it's a craft, it's a muscle you have to work on and build up. And no, you said it earlier, no one gets out of bed and is like, right, I'm going to write a novel, this is easy, boom, boom, done. Apart from Enid Blyton, that woman could write a book in a week, literally a book a week. Literally, and mind blowing, she typed like that. Like what? One finger on each hand, just like what was it called? Pecking. Such typing, which just sounds horrific to me. But hey,
but the carpal tunnel, like
apparently not. Like I mean, she like how many books did she write? Like 5 million? I don't know. An awful lot.
Quite a few.
Quite a few. So, at what point? I'm going to ask you two questions. At what point did you decide to enter the novel fair for the first time? And before you answer that, will you explain to anyone not in the know what the novel fair is? Because as far as I'm aware, I think it's like the only competition of its kind I've ever heard of.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether there's a blueprint for it elsewhere, abroad or whatever. I don't know, but yeah, I haven't heard of many. So the novel fair, so the Irish Writers' Centre have been running for I think this year is its 10th anniversary. So and you basically submit your first 10,000 words of, isn't it? Yeah, I should know, of your novel, and a 300-word synopsis. And you pay your fee, and in you go to the pool of all the other novelists, and they pick 12 finalists, or 12 winners. I mean, they can't find whatever. And it has been described as the dragon's den of writing. You get to pitch. You get 15 minutes with a selection of publishers and agents, and you get to basically sell your wonderful baby book to them and hope that they'll love it as much as you. And hopefully you'll get a deal. So it's, but you have to have a finished book. So this is one of the criteria, that by the time you submit in September, and they've gone through them all by December. So you have to that lovely book that you knew you were going to have finished when you submit in September has to be finished by December, or else. Yeah, you're right. So it's a great deadline. If you never got picked in those final 12, it's a fantastic deadline to give you oomph to get your novel finished. But
I've entered it twice, and both times with a different book, and both times I submitted it in September, and I was just like, I only have a couple of thousand words left. I'll finish this before the deadline, because I think it works at, like, I know the dates this year, or the year just gone by. They told you on the Friday the 8th of December that, hey, you got through to the final 12, please submit, or you got through to not the final 12, but to the short list. Please submit the rest of your book to pick the final 12, and you're given till the Wednesday. So that's how quick it is. You do, like you said, you do have to have it done and ready. And also, for anyone listening internationally, it's open internationally. You can submit from anywhere in the world. The only criteria is for that day Triona talked about, the Dragon's Den. I like to call it the speed dating of
yes, I think
that you just have to be able to be in Ireland for that day. So just if anyone's interested. So when did you decide to enter it, and with what, and how did it go?
Yeah, so this is it. So I mean, again, I was a member of this fantastic writers group, and I'd been doing short stories and all that type of thing, and kind of tinkering with that horrible second novel. We'll call it the second one. First one's my teens, and the second one No, actually, oh God, it was, anyway, whatever. But that was the third. Anyway, so this is the third, sorry, so the 30. So,
the Mills and Boon.
Yeah,
because you had the Mills and Boon.
I had the Outsiders rip off, then I had the Mills and Boons horror, then I had the family one, which is dreadful. I tell you, I've paid my dues, Connor. After spending a lot of time, working short stories, whatever, I said, and junking that terrible novel, I realized I love to read crime. That's my favorite genre. I mean, I read widely, but I know I love crime. I love not only just the regular attributes of reading, but the little kind of like you're trying to outwit the author and work out. I love everything about crime. So I decided, and I'd never chosen to try one because, again, the sort of lack of self-confidence really is a kind of recurring theme a lot, and really, so looking back, I get so annoyed at myself. But I thought to myself, oh, you'll never manage to do the complexities of a crime novel. You'll never manage to kind of work it. It's like, oh, don't do it, Triona. You only fail.
Which I think is really funny because I don't think, like, I've heard that so many times, people saying, oh, I could never write a crime novel. You have to know the twists and the ins and the complexities. I'm like, you're writing the damn thing. Like, if you come up with a good idea halfway through, you can go back and put in the little breadcrumbs that when the person gets to this point in the novel, that they're like, oh my God, they said it ages ago. It's like, no, you put it there after. That's how it works.
Yeah, I know. This is it. No, I mean, don't get me wrong, the challenges with writing a crime novel, but just bloody write. And in the end, I think I was just, it's time to write it. And another writer in the group, Louise Phillips, she's has about 5 crime books out now. She was in the group, and we both said, right, okay. There was a TV3, I think, did a novel competition. I think, in fact, Jenny
won that.
Yeah. So they did that for a few years. So I don't think it was Jenny's year, but it would have been either a year before or a year after. It was very close. And so Louise and I said, right, okay, so we're doing this seriously. We're sitting down. We're going to enter this competition. We have X amount of months to do it. And so she sat down and she wrote her debut novel. And I discovered that I was expecting my 4th child, and I lay down on a sofa for 9 months. And so I had a baby. I created something, but I didn't create a novel. But
you didn't create something you could sell. That was the issue.
No, well,
no.
Sorry, anyway, without getting into trouble. Anyway, so Louise then went on, and she didn't win, but she kind of, whether she was a runner-up or something, but anyway, they offered her a deal, and that was so encouraging, because it always feels, when you're slogging away in your room writing your little book, it just feels so unreal that anyone might ever actually get published, that someone would notice you. And so when Louise was picked up, it was like, oh my God, it happens. Bloody hell. And she was a real inspiration, and how she had just put the head down. She ignored everything for 4 or 5 months, and she just produced Red Ribbons, her book. And so I said, well, damn it, I'm bloody doing it. So I sat down and I produced The Dead Ringer, which was my first one that wasn't shit. Sorry, you can edit that out.
Is that what it says on the blurb?
Yes.
Her first novel that wasn't shit.
So I Celebrity, and it handily. I mean, I think I'm trying to think of the timelines of this. So I think it took a while to get going, because obviously I had a new small screaming child who never slept in my house. So I think it did take a couple of years after she was doing well to have the time. And then when my child hit 2.5 years of age, I threw her off to preschool, the poor thing. Sink or swim, child, mommy's got to write. And so she went off, and there was a cafe close by to where she went to preschool. So she'd go off to preschool for 2 hours. I'd go to the cafe, laptop, get my coffee, write, and then go get her. And then that was it. However, I can't remember how long it took, but I wrote the bloody book in those 2 hours every morning, and submitted that then into the 2014 novel fair. So never expecting anything. And also I hadn't noticed in the details that they tell you on a specific date if you've been shortlisted. I hadn't read, in typical Triona fashion, I hadn't really read the terms and conditions that closely. But there's some useful information in there. So I was in blissful ignorance that
the day had come.
Yeah, and so my phone rang one Thursday morning. I was like, and they're like, "Hi, is this Triona Walsh?" I'm going, mm-hmm. And they're like, "Are you the author of the book The Dead Ringer?" I was like, and that moment, I was standing in the hall just beyond that door there. I was like, yes, and oh my God, no, my poor family are aware I've written this book. And he said, yeah, I'm calling from the Writers' Centre and just let you know that you've been shortlisted. We're one of the finalists. And that was such a moment. I mean, it was just fabulous. And it was the first time you kind of go, okay, so, I can actually do this. And somebody who isn't related to me has read this and found it, independently good. So it was fantastic. And like that had to be submitted about 2 minutes later. And it was funny that weekend. So it was, I think the Thursday, and then it had to be on the Monday. And now, it would have been fine. I could submit it exactly as it was, but I'd known that there was kind of 17,000 words I wanted to add to it. And I just kind of, just to develop it, just flesh out bits. And I thought to myself, even though I knew it would be fine, like this part of your brain is going, no, listen, they're not going to go, ooh, that plot's a bit weak in that section, you're out. But I still sat down that weekend and wrote 17,000 words, just to,
Jesus.
Yeah. And, but the flow, that you get in that point, you don't have to do anything, you just really get, and meals were passed under the door at me, I think I was in my bunny onesie for the entire weekend.
Oh my God.
It wasn't good.
That's some feat though, 17,000 in, like, because to people that don't write, the numbers sound bizarre. Like, do you know what I mean? Because it is hard to get your head around how long a book is. So just so people get it, for 17,000 words, because I know this one, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, that first book, is 77,000 words. So like put that, like that's how much of a novel you wrote in 2 days. So
yeah, it was. I think, and sort of that I was quite motivated, let's say, which helped. But and again, it really wouldn't have mattered, like in hindsight. But like when you've just kind of got this first big break, it's like I'm doing nothing that could jeopardize this. So that was fantastic. Now, it was in the Writers' Centre, and it's a beautiful old Georgian building, the Writers' Centre. So it was just such a lovely location. And there was 12 of us, and as you say, the whole speed dating thing, and it was just one of the best days. I think I was dying of nerves. Like it was just never been so nervous. But everybody was lovely, and I think because these people hold your dreams in their hands, they could be the conduit. So it was just, but that was fantastic and very exciting. And I was very lucky in that I came out that I had an offer from an Irish publisher to publish the book afterwards. It took a good few months and lots of waiting and lots of no's, lots of rejections, but it did get picked up. And that, now again, I can remember going to the offices of this publisher. I can remember every step along the path, every up the stairs, everything about it is just imprinted.
Yeah, of course.
It was fantastic, but it didn't quite all go to plan. If I can tell you all about that now, if you'd like.
Yeah, no, I think because I think a lot of the authors I've had on the show are like myself, are self-published, and one of the reasons I never submitted, apart from the novel fair, I never submitted my first novel to any agent or any publisher at all, because I just made the decision, no, I'm going the self-publishing route. I'd rather, and one of the reasons being that kind of, I hadn't heard your story at this point, but I had heard these small stories that, although exceptionally rare, I was aware they still happened. So yeah, look, share your story. What happened then? So you're there, and you won the novel fair. First of all, there's the huge achievement of getting shortlisted for the novel fair. Then there's the huge achievement of being selected for the final 12. Then the fact that a publisher goes, yes, we want you, Triona. So it's like things are on the up and up and up and up. And then
so as you say, this is to give gotten to that point is just so hard. And like yourself, I'd heard the horror stories, so you always have that a little bit back in, and they had offered me a deal, but I didn't go public. Didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell anybody about it. I didn't mention on social media for, easily 12 months, because they were looking for, they were put in every year for Arts Council funding and everything. And so everything was just still a little, loose. They were going ahead with, but they just were getting all their, ducks in a row and everything. So I said, well, I'm not, until I have a date and whatever, I'm just going to be so cautious. I hate to tell the world that my book is coming out and then for anything to go wrong. So I waited ages before I could really let myself relax and enjoy it. And eventually, they were like, yeah, got the nod, we're full steam ahead. And I was there, got the picture of me signing the contract, the whole 9 yards, and out it went on social media. And, of course, and people were lovely. Oh, well done, Triona, how hard you've been working, blah, blah, blah. So then, there's always a way. Everything takes ages in publishing. So, they had a schedule. It was scheduled for, again, I can't remember exact details now, but sort of maybe 6-8 months later would be when it was, and the editing would come at a certain point. So that was all, I have to try and remember how it all panned out. So that was all, fine. I was editing, I was doing more work, and I was sending updated manuscripts to them. And and I was doing little bits of publicity already. I wrote an article for Books Ireland magazine, and just with them, just lots of little bits and pieces like that. Anyway, I think it all, for me, now I reckon people might have been in the know, but I got a phone call from the publisher, from that guy. And I was sitting here in this room, and I said, he's like, "Hi, Triona," and he could have had anyone else in the company could have rung me. So I appreciate that he was giving me a buzz. He said, "Look, we're just going to have to delay the book a little bit." He said, "We just, we're very stretched. There's a lot, and we're just, I think we're just going to push back your publication date." And I was like, okay, that's fine. Thanks for letting me know. Thanks for calling me. And I ended the phone call. And I remember standing there in this room, and thinking to myself, that's not good. Good sign, I'm going, is this where it all starts? Was that the closest, and sure enough, just little by little, things started trickling out about this company, a fantastic company, brilliant people, and things hit them. And then there was a little bit of a Twitter campaign pile on against this guy, rightly or wrongly, I don't know. I don't have any of the facts, so I certainly wouldn't suggest anything. And it came out that current authors weren't being paid because they couldn't be paid, and just it trended on Twitter. I remember the Friday the company trended on Twitter. I was going, no, don't trend on Twitter. This is bad. So it just basically.
I remember whenever you see something trending on Twitter, it's never, oh wow, something great happened. It's always, oh no. Like I remember in the midst of the big lockdown in 2020, Betty White started trending on Twitter, and I was just like, oh no, but then no, it turned out it was her birthday. But everyone thought she had died just because she
panic. So basically it was a bit of a slow, long, lingering death, because technically speaking, like they might sign a contract was still valid. This guy was understandably trying to resurrect, keep the company going, but it was really painful, and it was strung. I would also felt strung along a little bit then as well, and I could have, I don't know. Anyway, it was complicated and it was messy, and I think it probably about maybe 12 months after it all really went pear-shaped, it was sort of like, yeah, that's dead. That's it's and they just completely,
And so what happened to so the publishing company goes under essentially, and so this is the thing that I can't wrap my head around. Like I understand the law, but it's like sometimes things don't make sense. So like what happened with your manuscript then? Like, could you be like, oh, well, and then just hobble over to a different publisher?
I mean, that's pretty much where we are now. But, you know, it is, to be honest with you, technically speaking, I have a text message from him, which if he could, you know, if it was picked up elsewhere, you know, but if he wanted to be a very difficult person, he could go, I have a contract here because legally it wasn't properly resolved. I do have a text message from him, which, you know, I could show a judge, go, look, he's, you know, this is proof that I'm really, but it's a bit messy. It's a bit ambiguous, and it's not worth bringing solicitors into it. You know, it's, you know, you end up costing. So it's a bit of a mess. I think it'd be fine. I think, but I also wonder if I was a different publisher and I heard this messy mess, I mean, I'd be inclined. Yeah. Well, you know, there's a lot of writers out there. I think I don't know, but anyway, in the meantime, as there was a lot of waiting, there was a lot of time, there was a lot of lingering. I started writing the next book. Mm-hmm. I thought, well, you know, in this industry, especially with crime, they want a book a year, and you know, you need to get ahead of yourself if you can. And also, obviously, I love writing. I just wanted to be writing. So by the time this all kind of, I had basically the guts of another book there. So I think I kind of just transferred all my love to book 5 at this point. Where are we? And also again, the current book, and which you would have seen, yes, brought chapters to the group. It's a step up from that book as well. So part of me as well is that, yeah, I'm sure we could get the legal stuff sorted out clean, but I'd actually want to rewrite that book to bring it up to the standard I feel more now, you know, and I think I wouldn't be happy with it out there now. I think it's a good story, and I think it's reasonably well, I mean, it's well written enough. Obviously somebody wanted to publish it. Yeah. I think personally I would go, I'd like to make that, you know, a bit better. And I've learned so much, because you just learning. I mean, down to the last chapter of the current book, I was learning and improving and making my writing better. So I kind of would want to do that to that first proper novel, so yeah, I don't know. But there's so many stories like this, and again, you hear all these stories after it all goes belly up. You know, suddenly everyone comes out of the woodwork going, "Oh yeah, I remember, and this friend of mine, this happened, and that." You know, so it's sadly quite common, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think that's. I remember when I made my decision to be an indie author, that one of the things that bugged me was that it's not always the author who names the book or approves of the cover. Now, obviously, with covers are kind of different, because there's industry standards that an author might necessarily know. And what I think is an excellent cover for my book, someone else might be like, but it's not selling your book, you know. So covers are different, but the name of the book, I feel like that should be the author. And when I learned that usually it's the publisher that will name the book. I just remember going, oh no, no, not at all. That's my book. I'm gonna name it. So yeah, it's just a funny thing, traditional publishing, because it has its pros, because you have the weight of an entire company behind your book pushing it, and it can doing the harder things like formatting and all that kind of thing. But it's just this weird pro-con mix, I suppose. You know? Yeah. No, it is funny because this is it. I mean, I'd love to kind of drill down why. I mean, like, you went indie straight up, you know, and I think I definitely have a desire to be published traditionally, and I can't quite tell you why either. I'd love, because the thing is, my day job, I do book covers. That's what I do in my day job. So I could design my own cover. I can do all the format, I can do all the tech, I can, you know, there's literally, other than, as you say, the weight of publishing, there's nothing stopping me taking my books and going the indie route. And I wonder if that's something I will actually end up doing, because it makes a huge amount of sense. Like, you know, you get at that. It's just getting the book. I suppose the thing is getting the book noticed, because that is absolutely the hardest thing, because even like I've, as I said, I've had traditionally published authors on the show as well, and even then, like there's this myth I think amongst indies sometimes that, oh, but for traditional publishing, like someone else does all the marketing for you, and you just sit back and let the dollars roll in. It's like, no. Every author has to do their own marketing. I think the difference is that you have to do a lot more of the groundwork and a lot more of the kind of admin to do with.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, well, that's it as well. Like, yeah, absolutely. Like the trad published authors, they're not sitting in their garrets writing their works of art. They're publicizing, they're pushing it, they're doing exactly as indie authors are doing. But yeah, exactly. You have to, I suppose, do the really annoying.
Yeah, the niggly things,
Yeah.
as I do call them. But so one thing we neither of us mentioned actually about the novel fair is that the novel fair is only open to people who have not been published before.
Yes.
Right. So it's only if you have a novel. And what I think is interesting is if you self-publish, if you self-publish, you're not allowed. The rules at the minute are, you can only have sold a certain amount of books, and if you've gone over that mark, you're not allowed to submit.
All right. Okay.
And B, you're not allowed to have hired a professional editor for any of your previous books, which I think is very odd. Yeah.
It's strange,
isn't it? Because I do know there are people out there who would hire an editor before submitting to a traditionally published.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people do that. Yeah,
a lot of people do that. So I just think it's funny that, like, you can't have hired a professional editor, but that's neither here nor there. But you kind of struck, lightning struck you twice, because you went and entered the book that I have been reading in our writing group to the novel fair, and ring, you get that once in a lifetime phone call again.
Yeah, exactly. Once again. It was, and I missed the call. I knew this time I was savvy to the fact that there was a day. So, so 3 or 4 days leading up, I was going, oh my God, if you're going to, and then I was like, oh, for goodness sake, why are you going to assume that you might get in again? What are the chances? So then, of course, put the phone away. Don't look at the phone, because, like, don't be so, don't have notions that, those notions are terrible. You've got to watch out for the notions.
That's actually the name of of one of the episodes I did with Margaret Gonetti, because she had never heard that phrase of having notions, and when she explained it, I was like, oh, it's very like this Irish thing of having notions. And she even contacted me afterwards. It was like her cousins and everything were texting her going, oh, we have notions, that's what it is. So see, Margaret, if you're watching, see what I mean? It's not just me, it's all Irish people. Anyway, so you were having notions about yourself, which is a terrible sin.
It's
awful.
So amazingly, I missed the call this time, and there was I was out in Costa. Everything had opened up again, so I'd met a friend out in Costa. We were being very brave and risking our lives, and having a rare coffee. And I picked up the phone, and I thought, oh my God, and I didn't recognize the number, but it was, didn't look like it was from, somewhere strange, wanting to get details. And there was a message, and I had a listen, and it was the wonderful Betty Stinson, from the Writers' Centre, and she left a message, and other than ringing me to tell me that never enter again, you're so awful, please. I felt that there likely was just one reason she was ringing. And rang her back, and I was shaking, I have to say, and my friend said, yeah, I looked in an absolute state. I was like, and then of course I started joking ridiculously to poor Betty, and she just wanted to tell me the good news. I was like, oh, and it was a mess, but it was so fantastic, to have gotten through again. But of course she mentioned at the time that because of the situation, COVID and everything, that it was, as much as they wanted to be holding it in the centre, there was a chance it would all be done by Zoom, which is how it ended up. So it was very, very strange and very interesting. But as you mentioned about in the terms and conditions about having to be in Ireland for the day, that it was essentially suspended for this year because people can't travel, but and obviously been done over Zoom. So it was amazing. We had 2 people from Canada, one person, Sierra Leone, maybe, I'm not sure.
Oh wow!
In London, and I think maybe Texas. It was fascinating, just like, and most 90% of people, 99% were Irish. I think there's one Canadian Irish person who'd entered, but they were just, diasporaed all over the place. And so that was, so some poor people were like getting up in the middle of the night to take part.
Oh, God.
So it was very interesting. But now I have to say it was very interesting to me, but what was wonderful about the first novel fair back in 2014, I think writers are a great community, and they just love to talk, they love to share, well, maybe we all hate the successful ones or something, I'm not sure, but but yeah, really, as I said, writer groups are fantastic. There's so much sharing. So with the first novel fair, like, I've made lifelong friends from people who took part in that year. And it was brilliant, and that camaraderie is fantastic. And unfortunately this year, and that's something I had been really,
of course, because you didn't see each other and you didn't get to chat and everything. Yeah.
And so that was just kind of, we made a few attempts, but we're all like, we don't know you, so we don't really want to set up a WhatsApp group chat with strangers from around the world, but it's great support as you're waiting for news. And so we have been in touch a little bit, but it's not like the
first time.
Really, there's that year the class of whatever, really bond, and it's so that's a shame, but it happened. But it went ahead. So that now in itself is fantastic. COVID didn't put a kibosh on that. So
not too much, no. So we're nearly out of time already. So I'm dying to find out someday soon, hopefully, when your next book's coming out, because I have read, I'd say 20% of it, maybe ish,
that's
and it's brilliant, and I cannot wait to read the full thing. I think it's whether it comes out traditionally or indie, I'll be clicking that pre-order button, then I'll be
thank you so much. I appreciate that,
because it's fantastic, and you're a great writer. So I'm gonna ask my last three questions. I was relax. I'm gonna ask my last three questions I always ask everybody. So first is, when we stopped recording and we've chatted for another bit and said our goodbyes, what's the first thing you're going to do today?
I am off to get my first dose of vaccine.
Yay!
So I am the happiest fucking camper, and if I get my badge that says I've been vaccinated, I'm going to go around to everybody, though not for another 6 weeks until I've had second dose and immunity. But yes, so that's what I'm off to do, and I'm absolutely freaking delighted.
Yeah.
There we go.
My other half got his second dose on Thursday, and it's bizarre. I'd say you'll feel it now when you get home. There's this underlying anxiety that we've all got so used to, that once you're vaccinated, or someone close to you is vaccinated, you're like, oh, I don't have to worry about them now, or worry about me now, or whatever. And it's crazy how much of a build-up of pressure there has been on us all this last 18 months.
Absolutely. I have a Leaving Cert student in the house, so I'm terrified that he'll get it. And there was an outbreak in his school just last week, a year early, and this is it. So even just little things like that, So yes, I can't wait.
Then my second last question is, where can people find you online, so if they want to kind of get updates and know when your book is coming out?
Indeed. Well, TrionaWalsh.com is my umbrella website, and all my advice. I'm an illustrator, and as I said, a book cover designer. That all comes on my writing stuff. So that's it. I have to update it all. I've been a bit lazy, a bit busy, but you're giving me the push to. That's all up to date.
And for anyone watching on YouTube or listening, there'll be links as always in the show notes and in the description and everything like that. And then finally, my last question, Triona, what was the last book you read?
Very good. Well, the last book or the book I'm currently reading?
Either or, whatever.
Either. Yeah, well, I am, again, COVID has kind of, I think, focused all our minds about being healthier and looking after ourselves. So I've been getting out walking, and I hate walking, hate exercise of any sort. I think it's just wrong and evil and bad and shouldn't happen. But I have been encouraging myself by listening to audiobooks. I never used to have the focus for them, but again, as I said, we've all been a bit focused by COVID. So I'm listening to Jane Casey, the very first of her Maeve Kerrigan detective crime books, and it's absolutely brilliant. I heard lots of great things, and I can't tell you why it's brilliant, which I'm fascinated. So the writer in me is listening now with the writer's ear, going, "What's she doing? It's so compelling," because on the surface, it's a crime book, So I heartily recommend it, whether listening or on the page.
Excellent stuff. Triona Walsh, thank you so much for coming on and doing this. It's and I said this with Jenny as well. It's so nice to actually get to talk to you properly, because in our writing groups, even when we were meeting in person, like we were all focused on the writing, and the only chat you'd really get is walking from the room upstairs down to the street, and then we'd all say our byes at the door. So it's nice to actually talk to you properly and get to know you.
So listen, thanks for having me on here. It's been I've loved and enjoyed talking about myself for an hour.
Who doesn't?
I know, just so fascinating.
Thanks again.
Thanks a million.